Okay, so with me today I have David, who is the co-founder of Adalo. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Um, yeah, why don't you run us through a sort of quick intro about yourself and Adalo? And I know I met you guys, what was it, a year ago in Vegas for MicroConf, and you were called Foundry Platform then, right?
Yes, that's right. Founding Father. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, we were. I also got really bad food poisoning right after that. So never, no more Vegas buffets. No more Vegas hotel buffets ever. Anyway, so yes, yeah, we were actually called Foundry at the time. Um, Happy that we made the commitment to do the name switch. There was just a lot of other foundries and in existence and other kind of tech foundry names, so that was a little bit difficult. People were not even emailing the correct people. So anyways, we ended up switching to Adalo, which, as some people might know, is named as an homage to Ada Lovelace. She was the first true computer programmer, people say. So we believe that the no code movement is now making billions more coders. I actually come from like more of a design background. I started in architecture. I got my master's of architecture, and then so I also don't know how to code. I'm the one of the founders that was they're making this product for me a little bit for sure. So I saw the kind of trend of design tools, prototyping tools, starting to get extremely realistic. And that was partially on my side of things. Hey, how can we just can't take all those like wonderful things, but apply it to actually creating true apps? And then got connected with Jeremy. He was out in California at the time. I was in St. Louis. Didn't know each other. Another takeaway from events, aside from never eat the Vegas buffets, is you don't know who you meet will be extremely important. Glad that she connected us, and then started working together. Ben joined on as well, and here we are today. A little background. You also, I guess, asked about Adalo general as well. So a little background on Adalo, as a lot of you might know. It's a no-code app builder. We work across all devices. So that's, on iOS and Android in the actual Apple and, Play stores, and then as well as on the web. So trying to allow your experience to go wherever your users want it to go. I would say our experience is trying to be as kind of truly drag and drop as possible in a more visual way, kind of a lot like the prototyping tools do today. I feel like that visual style really helps you, come up with whatever you're trying to work on, but also gives you the flexibility to make it unique and yours. That's a little bit about Adalo and what we're doing.
Awesome. I also did not know that it was like an homage to Ada Lovelace. So that's something I've learned today.
Yeah.
How did you get involved in the tech world? If you did a master's in architecture, how did you then start looking at these design tools for prototyping?
Yeah.
And then also, how did then the Adalo concept come around? Where did that come from?
Yeah. So towards my end of time in architecture, I started to get really excited about the power of design, power of taking an idea that's a concept, and you have a problem and you come up with a concept for a solution, and how do I actually make that a real thing? And I felt like I was getting educated like that in school, but that kind of skill set should and could apply to a lot of other things. So that kind of led me to wanting to try design in a different field. So I got connected to a startup in St. Louis. At the time, I convinced them that I could do UX design, even though I had no idea what I was doing. And then they also didn't have not that it was really that long ago, but they didn't even have boot camps, or schools didn't have UX design either. So it was a little bit easier then to convince people. So started doing UX design for quite a while at that company, and then really was like the first design hire they had as well. So was able to do all the other fun parts. I was able to see design from a lot of different aspects there. But I think it was really that passion for, I'm really, I really want to help people like who have ideas be able to like make them a reality. So it was the combination of seeing this trend in the prototyping tools get easier. And then my other colleague at the time, Ben, who's another one of the co-founders, we had always talked about, hey, how can we help people who have ideas, bring them to life? And then that's kind of how Adalo, was started about to some extent. We also had, I had tried to learn how to code at the time. There was the big argument where like, if you're a UX designer and you don't know how to code, then you're not a true UX designer. So people would yell at me for not being a real UX designer. I even said to myself one day, like, it feels like there's not a point learning this because like prototyping is getting so realistic that like, aren't we just going to make it real at some point? So I even remember like thinking back on that. I didn't realize that then I would be like one of the people to like help out with this movement. Yeah, that's a little bit of how that started on my end. And then, definitely from Adalo's origins, super important to know Jeremy's side of the things from, he comes at it from the developer side of things. He saw the development languages getting more and more automated. That layer of abstraction keeps rising higher and higher with coding. And I think, no code is another layer of abstraction on top of it, but coding languages are getting, more efficient in that aspects. So I think it was a combination of dev trends and design trends kind of converging. We've had some attempts previously with no code, I feel like, before we called it no code. And it was hard for some of those products to, really flourish, just given, there wasn't really standardized UX practices. We didn't really know what we were supposed to do there. There wasn't, the coding languages weren't quite advanced enough to allow the power that we're seeing today. So I think it's also been just a nice timing for us for some of those factors. I think why we're really seeing no code, flourish now.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you're saying the coding languages, like the abstractions of coding, and that piece is like getting easier and easier. There's like ways you can have these frameworks for like having shortcuts in code. And also you're saying about the prototyping tools, the design tools, and you're saying, well, we basically made it look real. How can we just have it be real? But yeah, it's one of those things you think, surely at one point it's that. And it feels like those two worlds are coming closer together, which is why like no code could exist, because it's taking the visual cues from that visual side, but pairing it with the power of the coding stuff on the other side. And actually, it's funny that you say about you joined that startup as UX designer. Like, how many years ago that wasn't a thing either? It was like prototyping something or making something feel real wasn't quite as advanced as it is now. Even I heard somewhere, I must have been on another podcast or something, where they were talking about how like data scientist wasn't a thing either. Like UX design wasn't a thing. So in this current climate, there's like this whole no code stuff going on, people being no coders. We can obviously go into the terms in a bit, but it's like this is a thing, and I think it's very obvious for the people who have figured out that it's a thing. And actually you don't realize the power of it because I've managed to build something. You can never do that before. So I feel really strong. I'm sure you do too. That there's like this group of people who are like, no, look, I told you this was going to be a thing. That's what it was. Probably with data scientists and UX designers, and at some point we'll see them in the workplace. And it's like, okay, you're the integrations operator. This is like you're a no code at work person.
Yeah.
You then going to see that sort of convergence.
Yeah. It's weird to think like, you will need either like one. It'll be interesting to see what, is that like a full position, or is that like another skill set that you kind of have? And maybe it's a little, mixture of both, right? Especially as it starts to infiltrate its way into more organizations, right? I mean, you have for example, let's take designers, right? There are designers on the marketing side, there are designers on the product side of things. So there might be no coders at maybe different departments as well, or maybe you have, a champion of it who's all about doing that at that specific company. I think we'll see business consultants start to actually switch towards that type of thing, instead of just providing you with, hey, here's a plan of what you should do. Actually implementing some of those efficiency gains, in real time will kind of be, incredible to watch. I think the companies that start to embrace it more and more are just going to move faster and faster. It's really, and that's both like companies that are starting up for the first time now, as well as I think, as their whole product is based on it, as well as companies that, already have a existing business, maybe even, or probably even outside of the tech space, and are just, I think maybe it was you had mentioned it, the tech enabled businesses, and stuff like that. Really, what are the other sides of your business that, you can bring no code to solve something? So excited to see that stuff.
Yeah, me too. I think we're in such a small area of what we're covering now. It seems like the tech Twitter, there's a group of tech Twitter people who are now no code tech Twitter. Yeah. But it's actually there's so many people who, I chat with someone who runs a real estate investment company who is very profitable. They've got loads of processes that they do at work and all that stuff. And just the thought of, you can automate a bunch of things or have extra workflows looking for us is almost unheard of for them, or it just opens their eyes a bit more. And it's like the whole education piece. I mean, that's why.
Yeah.
Straight into education. You kind of show the person the exact thing. This is, you could do this, but this is actually a real thing that you could do.
Yeah.
Do you see that? I mean, Adalo for me, I think, looks like more on the side, like you said before, of helping people build their ideas. Is it more on the entrepreneurial maker side of things? And is there a decision for that, or is it hoping that maybe you think that businesses are going to start spinning up their own mini products using things like Adalo? What you think?
You don't really know how far your idea will go, whether it's just a small little thing or whether that thing is going to flourish into, a real venture that, becomes something that's really big, more of like an entrepreneur, maybe always has that intention. And, even on the company side of things, right, when you are trying to come up with a new, solution to a problem you have, and that ends up being some sort of app that is a good solution to that thing, you might test that thing, but then realize okay, this is a great and scalable for just these, either 30 internal people that are doing this process, or wait a second, we tested this with a group of customers and now I think we need to scale it more. So we do see that people want to be able to easily build something very quickly to test it out, but then also want to scale that. Their use case might only have the small 30 people, and that's great. Or it might end up being tens of thousands of people that need that solution. So we want you to be able to feel confident in going into whatever that problem you have to move that way. So I think, definitely at the moment, more of our Adalo users are the entrepreneur or the small business, or even the freelancers who are, the no code agencies and freelancers who are making things for small businesses. Right. But we think that this was going to move into enterprise as well, in kind of a lot of the stuff that we're talking about. So making sure that, we have the features they need as well to scale from integration.
When I started MakerPad, it was obviously for the maker type, the entrepreneur or wannabe entrepreneur, because I was that person too. That's how I started using no code before MakerPad. I was building for myself, and then having a business on top of it meant that I had an excuse to build a new thing every day or every couple of days, because people were paying memberships, so that I could just building just as long as I showed them how I was doing it. But it's I've seen a ton of businesses or a ton of people talk about that almost being one of the worst customers to have, because
Yeah.
it tends to be the type that perhaps want to do things cheaply, or they're just a bit more frugal than people who like are spending company money rather than their own. So I've thought about that a lot, and part of me was like, oh, is that a real thing that I'm thinking? But I think the conclusion I've come to is I think that everyone, well, there's an entrepreneurial spirit in people, in a lot more people than there is, like the more than we think about that, and it's just like having these things and showing off that you could build like an Airbnb clone or like a marketplace type app. It shows these people who have that spirit in them to like, oh, maybe I could do this other thing, and that enables me to build. So I think that actually trying to find these maker types who want to be builders, even if they already currently work at a company or if they are trying to start their own thing, is actually a really important step to acknowledge and say, like, you can be, you don't have to be trying to build Uber. No code probably won't get you to build that. Like, that's completely honest. It probably won't be doing that. The motive Airbnb is not the mechanics of how a marketplace works. It's that it's Airbnb and it's all the people connected to it and everything else and experience you can fit. So I do wonder how this whole creator economy will come around, and will we see more people doing gig-based work? It's okay that you work somewhere else and you've got 3 side projects on the go because they bring you $2,000, $3,000 a month. It's a small newsletter or no good business even. I think that's the world we're building for. What I'd like to hope that. But what do you think?
Yeah, no, I definitely think, well, one, I think like it's not a binary choice between like or like little makers or enterprise, right? On both sides of those, they have, like you're saying, the entrepreneurial spirit, right? Whether that's like to fixing a problem in my company or to fixing a little side hustle thing and making some money on the side. So I definitely kind of see that aspect, kind of playing out as well in the no code space.
It's difficult then. I think about it because it's like, does the language of make and how we come across attract all of those people with that maker mindset? But almost there is no word for that type of person. Because you say entrepreneur, it's like this one person who's trying to build this business. If you talk about a maker, that only really rings true in the tech startup world, I think. And I only ever used it because I worked at products and so we call people who built or made products. Creator could be a painter, a musician, anything. So it's like, I think there was actually Heaton Shah did the state of what is it, the state of makers report or something. They did like a big report. I know he's very good with products, figuring out how to like, talk to customers. So I thought really interesting that on the hero of this report, it had the word creators, but it would change every like second to say creators, makers, founders, entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Almost like this it's the same for all sort of included, but you almost haven't found the word. I wonder what if you thought there is a word that encapsulates that, or I think for me actually the one thing that seems to like lie underneath all of that is being curious to solve things. So my curiosity led me into no code stuff. And then that led me into, oh, can I push this a bit further? Can I add this thing? Can I build this other thing? So the natural curiosity definitely was helpful, but it's difficult to pinpoint that on someone, I think.
The word design, right? Like that design process, some people think, well, that's like has to be beautiful and aesthetically pleasing and all these things, right? But that process of like taking something from nothing and bringing it to real life is the same. And we call it different things, right? Like in business, it's problem solvers, or in, art school, like in education, it's like creative people, it's like we have like the creative process, right? It's like, or entrepreneurs, right? Like it's all about, I have an idea I'm experiencing some sort of problem, and I would like to build something to fix that problem. I think that process is all the same, and I think we're all starting to learn it better. I know, like in the no-code space, the solution ends up being something that is a digital product, right? There are other manifestations of this in, other areas, but it's there's not a good word for, even the design process. The same underlying thing is there, but we're a little bit struggling, which, I mean, I'm at least glad that the term, I know we're all like, oh, is no code the right term? And there's all that debate, which is part of like what the Futures No Code like little series is about. But I saw a tweet the other day that I really liked. Where it was just like, well, I'm glad we at least like have a name so that we can like find each other. So I definitely like agree with that sentiment of like, we're all finding each other now and helping each other out and being part of this community. So excited to see, where it goes.
Yeah, you've done this. Is it a report, the book? What's the series called?
Yeah. So the Futures No Code. Yes, that was a little bit of a bad naming thing too. It's definitely like a book and mini series as well, with the videos and that kind of stuff. It was all about. I had a little bit of an existential crisis when I was like trying to answer questions and be an expert about it to some extent. Of like, well, there's like all these little parts. Like, I'd like to hear what everyone else has to say, and then maybe like, combine them all and put them into one piece. So that piece is out. From like you being able to look at all the different answers. I've been working recently on trying to actually like pull out the threads and the strings between them and seeing like what the averages of everybody's answers were. There was a type form that we sent out that went out to everybody who could submit it as well. So, and we got a ton of responses on that. So maybe by the time this podcast's out or very soon, kind of towards the end of June, we're going to be having like a little conclusion report on that about, what is no code? What is it going to mean for the future? What is everyone predicting will happen in it? So excited for the like final piece of that thing to kind of go out and see how.
Yeah, I think the podcast will be out sometime in July. So what have you seen in that data from the experts, the wider community of like, what have been some things that surprised you about what people are thinking or talking about or their opinions on this whole space? Is there anything that jumps to your mind?
Yeah. Let's see. I think, well, one thing that I had like, I've been like reading over these things and thinking about stuff. And like one thing that I've kind of recently just thought of, I think it kind of came up, and I think naturally a little bit with like also like SpaceX has been in the news with some of their launches and stuff like that. And I've just been like realizing just kind of how perfect of an example in kind of three ways. So the first is like, they started with a guiding principle that like their rockets had to be reusable. So they had so much constraints at the beginning, right? That's like, how am I supposed to do that? Like everything has to be able to be reused for us to like accomplish our huge goal. And that's sort of similar with no code right now. You can't do everything with no code platforms. Maybe, or at least not with one no code platform. You can piece them together, but there's still constraints in our space, right? If you're a true developer, you can make it. So one, there's these constraints that you're up against, that forced us, I think, to be more creative. And then kind of the second thing that I've seen is, you have to start small with an MVP then because of that, and then evolve. And I know that like that guiding principle has been there for a while in the tech space, but I think no code really forces that to happen. Like truly have to start small with your idea with some of those constraints, and then build it over time. And you saw that with SpaceX with like, they started with like these teeny little rockets that didn't really go anywhere. And, but they wanted to make sure that they were, reusable when they came down. So starting small, but then now that they've gotten past that point, their iteration process, and I think it's gonna be the same with no code, right? Like your iteration process for changing things when you get user feedback, or when God forbid something happens like the pandemic and a lot of the things in the news today that you need to switch really quickly, you're able to actually do that because of that rapid that rapid iteration is naturally part of no code. And then I think the final thing about that metaphor to me that's been in my head recently is like, it's a really like, it's still, and it's getting more mainstream, but it's a big thing, make whatever you want without knowing how to code. And there are a lot of people, there are a lot of doubters, just like there are a lot of, I think, doubters at the beginning with SpaceX being like, we're going to go to Mars and like, we're going to live there. And people are like, you're crazy. And I think there's still some of that in the no code space with people outside of it that are like, like, it's still not quite going to be a possible thing. And I think that we're all trying to like work together as a community to, help each other out from like a product perspective and make these things work together to accomplish something that, 5 years ago would have seemed impossible, but now is becoming a little bit of reality. So maybe that wasn't the best answer to some of your question, but it's like that kind of like has come up recently in my mind as to like why I'm so excited about the space. And, it's nice to see an example of that's like played out successfully so far. I think for the no code space. So.
Yeah, I think some of the stuff you're touching on there is, it's not that people in this space don't realize that there are constraints. I think there's some negativity and like, you couldn't do everything. And it's like, yeah, that's fine. Like, you couldn't do that with anything in the early stages of anything. Like, the point is, we're testing to see what we can do and see how far we can push it. And then that's that it ignites the next phase. Like, what can we do next? And what's this other piece? And I keep thinking of like people who always, you see this a lot where saying, someone would say, okay, well, I want to build something. And I say, oh, well, it'd be a really good app to do this. It's like, well, can it handle, maybe, like, can it scale to like 100,000 users a day or a million users a day or something? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they want to, but it might not. But also, like, why don't start with 10 users a day, get to 10, get to 100, get to 1,000. And then, like, things don't just happen like that. When Airbnb first launched their platform, that platform would not have scaled to what it is today. Like, things change over time. And people think that because we are in this no-code space that we're stupid to it and we don't think about that. But it's not the point. Like, we're not oblivious to the fact that, okay, this thing that we built may not have 1 million users a second who can handle that, but I'm trying to build that from the get-go. Nothing anyone ever builds the first iteration, unless it maybe is on the old school newsletter or something, could actually handle what we're hoping or what may become of it in 5 years' time or something. So I think people just need to be like, yeah, it's just worry about the creative side, worry about like the better thing. So you don't have to worry about that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's natural too. And like, I'm glad people are thinking that way. Like, you should be aspirational, right? So, and just like SpaceX is and was aspirational of like, we're going to like chill on Mars, right? So that doesn't mean that you're not like aspirational when you just focus really small first on, like you said, getting your first customer. It's like, get one person who's really using it, like not just like, oh, download it, whatever. It's like, whatever. And then get a few people that are like, that are, actually who are experienced whatever problem you had and now have, you've created something that allows them to fix whatever that problem was and then talk with them and then get more of those. So the huge benefit is like, these things right now are so much more cost effective that like, it's fine if like you only have 100 active users, like forever, right? Like you did it, like that like niche solution now like really solves that like niche problem, right? Like at the moment, right? Like that's not even remotely possible for current SaaS companies. They have to have a platform that works for a ton of different use cases. And their product backlog with features that are so far down the line, and they can't get to everything, and they have to make it kind of like generally work for everybody. And then not everyone's really happy because it's just generally working for them, or maybe the people who have the most money at the top who are like really telling them what features they need, then they're happy, right? But I think the power of this like smaller niche, even subset niche audience. And I think that as these products that are built on no code scale, I think they're going to have this superpower where they're able to like build versions of their product that works for all of these different niche audiences. So you're not having to be general, because you're able to spin up another version of that only has features A, B, G, and H, and that works perfectly for that really small subset niche. And then another one has A, B, Z, and Y features, right? And that works perfectly for that subset. And that's not possible today. I shouldn't say that's not possible. It's very difficult today for traditional SaaS companies to do that, right, in terms of resource allocation. So
I think I was listening to Dave Carell's podcast. He talks loads about like coming up with ideas and all these things, and actually the experiences you go through in life, whether it's a job or something happened, or you try to build something one time, didn't quite work, try to build something another time, you figure out what you like and what you don't like, and then you take all the pieces at some point, and it does sort of click. You think, oh yeah, I like building with no code. People have said, how do I build it? Like, how did you build them? Okay, someone wants me to tell them. I didn't invent membership businesses. I didn't invent the screencasting business. I didn't invent like just posting the cool thing on Twitter that people would share. Like some of these things are like just seemingly small pieces. When you combine them, and that niche has found you, or you found them, or it hits the right people at the right time, there's something quite special there, and that's how all these unique like creations of businesses actually do happen. And I think we'll just see so many more of these. Like you see all the people just having Substack. I now have probably far too many, but even just enabling someone to have an email newsletter business that they can just have, like, okay, some people, if they're writing for 10 people, it's 10 people who are probably paying them to write for them. So it's still like a thing that you want to do. And then it's like writing is probably one of the best examples of your perspectives on things and how you write things down are all from the learnings and experiences that you've had. So the way you think about it, or the way you like look at a problem when you're writing about it, is a combination of all of those experiences. So with no code, I think that enables you to do that, but in a different way to express it. Like building this, I built this way. Why? Because I could, and because that's how I'd like it. Like that's okay. You're allowed to do those sorts of things. So it's going to be really interesting. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on today. It's been great. And when you tell the people where they can find you.
So Adalo.com. That's ADALO. And then The Future is No Code is up on our site. You can also just Google The Future is No Code, Adalo or Future is No Code. I'm sure you'll find it when you're Google searching for the report and stuff like that. So if you're just getting into it, or if you're also an expert and want to see where all the other experts think it's going, I hope the conclusion piece lives up to the hype. And thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right. Cheers.